I've gotten a lot of attention from men in my life. Yes, yes, real attention. They liked everything about me. My breasts, a good 3, as Europe would say, slender legs, at my height of 180, as my current husband told me a long time ago, I have legs from the ears. And this, you know, is already an indicator. Athletic figure. Well, I am such by nature, even in spite of 2 children and 39 years of life. You know, I tried to respond to all these signs of attention from men, but it was interesting for me to see their limitations. They, it turns out, were only chattering skillful. As soon as I was invited for a cup of coffee or a movie, I immediately agreed. But I put my condition. Cavaliers must go to my parents, leave their ID card, provide my relatives with a medical certificate on the absence of STDs. But before I could list them all, the guys would run away. Don't think that I didn't understand what guys needed from me, but thank God my grandmother taught me to always think with my head, not my sweet spot, and to treat everything with humor. Oh, I'll only add that my grandmother was from far away and incomprehensible to me, Odessa. It's too far from my homeland. Although, I think I would have loved it there. It's just that everyone there in Odessa is such a humorist, because my grandmother always told me that I reminded her of her in her youth, with all my quirks. So I had this mania to test guys for strength with my naivety. But one guy came along who was just as crazy as I was. He looked at me for a long time. We met in a cafe where we chose the same order. He was so polite, patient, handsome, and taller than me by 10 centimeters. In a word, destiny. But my destiny was very modest, and after a month I couldn't take it anymore. Gerald, you know I'm tired of waiting. You might want to ask me out on a date. Sophie, I really want to go on a date with you. Would you agree to meet me and go to the movies? He looked at me with such sincere eyes that I was just lost. You know, I'll go on a date with you, but I just want you to know my requirements. I decided to test the guy's strength. You have to pick me up and meet my parents. Oh, and don't forget your ID, and my folks would like to see an STD-free medical certificate. Preferably you should be well-dressed, as they might think you have only the worst in your head. My mom loves wildflowers. I'm crazy about white roses. My dad drinks bourbon. My grandmother loves candy and talking a lot, so you'll need to listen to her for at least 15 minutes. And my little brothers love chocolate candy. Man, you won't believe this. It was the first time in my entire conscious life that I had ever voiced all the points. This guy deserved that I could kiss him, just because of his patience. Oh, okay, Sophie. I see your point. Then I suggest you and I get together next week. I'll need to bring a note from the clinic. What do you say we meet Saturday afternoon? Let's say 5 o'clock. I'll pick you up. We'll go into session at 8, so that should give me enough time to talk to all your relatives. Oh, I agree. Gerald, can I kiss you now? It's just... This is the first time I've ever done this. I'm excited. I was scared I might lose a guy like that. And we kissed for the first time. Man, that was so good. I felt like I was on top of the world. I know a lot of people will tell me that kissing before the first date is wrong, but listen, is sleeping together for 2 or 3 years before you get married the right thing to do? From that day on, I waited for that all-important Saturday. Gerald and I saw each other every day, kissed each other goodbye. I was in love for the first time. Yes, I turned 21, and I was in love for the first time with the most wonderful guy. Gerald was 6 years older than me. I was finishing college at the time, and my almost boyfriend was working at a computer firm. He was a cool programmer. And I was going to be a lawyer in the future. That's what my dad decided, and my dad wouldn't give me bad advice, believe me. To make a long story short, I couldn't take it. I was scared. I was afraid that Gerald wouldn't come. He'd just get scared of all my demands. But he was persistent. On Saturday, at 5 p.m. sharp, the doorbell rang at our house. I went to open it, as my folks already knew that my boyfriend, with whom we were supposed to go on a date, was going to show up. When I saw him, I was just lost. My Jerry was standing on the porch of our house in a beautiful suit. I had never seen him so dressed up. He handed me a beautiful bouquet of white roses and kissed me on the cheek and told me he was happy to see me. Then my mom came up and Gerald handed her a bouquet of wildflowers. I had never seen such beautiful daisies. bells and cornflowers. My mom and I invited Gerald in. I saw my mom just glowing with happiness. My boyfriend was holding a paper bag. What was in that bag, I didn't even know. When my dad introduced himself, Jerry deftly pulled a bottle of old bourbon from the bag. That's when I realized he remembered everything. I'd only told him once about my demands. Then he handed a big box of candy to my brothers and all of a sudden gave my grandmother the same box of candy. She really loved sweets. Then my boyfriend did something that shocked all my relatives. Gerald came over to me and got down on one knee and took a velvet box out of his pocket. Everyone fell silent, not realizing what was going on. "Sweet Sophie, I want to ask you in front of your family to marry me. My documents and certificate are in my right pocket. But I've prepared everything. My parents already know and think I shouldn't lose you." He smiled uncertainly. "And damn it," I shouted back at him, "yes, I will be your wife. You know, I was happy. I didn't even have to hide my joy. And my family was happy for us. Here, I remember everything even now. How many wonderful years have passed. And you know, I always wondered if my Gerald remembered that incident. But I think I'm 100% sure he does. We learned to trust each other with everything. Pain shared became pain halved. Joy shared became joy doubled. That's how we lived. Gerald became co-owner of the computer firm where he had been working when we met. Once I read on the internet that women closer to 40 always have a problem with the appearance of the desire to cheat on their husbands. Not that I wanted to cheat on mine. My Gerald was the most reliable man, and he was a very gifted lover. I do not know, but in his family, even his grandfather in his almost 70 managed to run after girls. Sometimes I sinfully wanted to buy him something sedative. He was ready for anything, especially since our kids were already in college and we had room for sexual marathons at home. But back to the problem with lovers. From what I've read, women my age are being tried to get by bosses. And yes, my dear boss complimented me a lot. Well, I knew right away that this was an attempt to seduce me. I wondered how he would do it. "Oh, dear Sophie, do you know how you'd like us to have dinner together?" My boss, Mr. Little, was so gallant. "Well, I think my Gerald would have no trouble making dinner for us. You know what a skillful cook he is. He'll make a dinner that you and your wife will love." I was as honest as ever. What does that have to do with your husband and my wife?" The chief didn't understand the situation. "What does that have to do with it? You and I will be lovers later, and I think that, for example, my husband has the right to meet you." Yes, you should have seen my boss's face. He turned pale and told me to get back to work because there was something very important to do. Well, I guess it was even for the best. The boss was in his early 60s. I'd have to, with my sexual needs, buy him Viagra. But pray tell, where's the guarantee that his heart could take the strain? Yeah, I made a mistake with the boss, so I went back to reading. And I found the perfect fit. A young coworker. And we've just got a young man, 27 years old. Just the right age to try and do something I'd be ashamed to remember. Yes, I realized that Dave liked me. He talked to me so often that I was sure he would ask me to be his mistress. One day, Dave offered to have coffee with him. I realized that the time had come and he would act on it. "You know, Sophie, you're such a wonderful woman, both smart and beautiful. I noticed you as soon as I joined our firm." Yeah, try not to notice me when I'm above everyone else, even from Dave, by about 10 centimeters. "Oh, Dave, thank you. I think I noticed you right away, too." Of course I noticed him. Too thin, tastelessly chosen clothes. And his cologne was disgusting. But I decided not to scare the potential candidate for my lover. "Oh, I'm so glad. How would you feel about us dating for a little while for common interests? I know it's too harsh, but I think we could brighten up our lives with some love encounters." He was so insistent. "Oh, Dave, you have a family like me, don't you? What will they think of us?" I was trying to figure out what kind of man he was. "Well, I guess ours don't need to know everything." He was already confident of his victory. I, on the other hand, was still hesitant. "You know, I can't do that to my husband. I'll talk to him. I think he'll understand me and accept my choice. You tried talking your wife into it. I wanted to try being a mistress, but I wanted honesty. Sophie, I can't tell my wife that. It's not customary, after all. Lovers always meet in secret from their spouses. He decided to press me. You know, I'll take you up on your offer, but I'll talk to my husband and give you an answer today. Then we'll decide when and where we'll have our first meeting. I made Dave a sincere promise, and he rejoiced as he said it was his fondest dream. I drove home in high spirits. This was it. I'd be like everyone else. And I'd have a lover. I just had to make sure Gerald got it right, and I needed his advice. I mean, he's a smart man. I wondered how Dave's wife would take Dave's offer to let me and her husband be lovers, but I guess I should have just waited to ask. I walked into the house and smelled the aroma of a fine dinner. Yes, Gerald knew how to cook and always managed to come up with something new and delicious. Hello, my favorite, how was work? My husband hugged me tenderly, the way he knew how to do. It even made my heart feel warmer. Same old work, 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 work. I kissed my husband on the lips. Go wash your hands, darling, and we'll have dinner. God, he was just perfect. It was after dinner that I decided to talk to Gerald about the lover idea. Honey, I'm going to have a serious conversation with you. You see, I read on the internet and talked to my friends at work. Every woman my age can have a lover. I think I could try what it's like with a lover. And I'll tell you right away, I haven't had a thing with anyone. It's just, I'm curious. I looked into my husband's eyes. Well, it's just a normal thing, but you do realize that there's a lot to consider here. You realize this is a big decision. Gerald thought for a moment. You see, you'll need to decide on your meeting place. Such matters should be handled by a man. He also needs to be clean of STDs. Demand that of him at all times. He has to provide you with gifts. Think about your protection. Then you'll need to be prepared to be declassified. Your workplace prohibits such relationships. You could lose your positions and licenses, and then you'd have to find something new. And new isn't always okay. Yes, my Gerald was smart, so I could have been kicked out of my job. Somehow, an unattractive future could await me. Then, dear, we'll have to get a divorce. We'll sell the house. It's a shame, but that's what everybody does. We'll split all the proceeds equally. Well, I won't have my lawyers write down adultery. Then you have to decide where you're going to live after you divorce each other, and find out how he cooks. Because I'll be worried about you. Gerald smiled bitterly. Wait, you mean you and I are going to have to get a divorce? And even sell our magical house? This is where I got nervous. Of course. And also, you have to understand, if you're allowed to have a lover, then I'll have the right to go womanizing myself too, especially since our neighbor Mary has been making eyes at me for a long time. Gerald had always been attracted to other women, but he was faithful to me and wouldn't even listen to any attempts to flirt with any lady. No, Gerald. Not with Mary. She's very attractive. You see, she's a widow and she won't let you go. I realized that was not an outcome I wanted to face. Well, where's the guarantee that you won't get infatuated with your lover? Maybe he'll just be a sex giant, or, even worse for me, he'll just make your life a fairy tale. It's not like I'm going to have sex with you anymore. Gerald lowered his head, trying not to think bad thoughts. But I love you and I can't interfere with your happiness. Would I have been able to see him before your relationship? I'd at least know what kind of person he is. What the hell kind of person is better than you? I was shocked. Dave versus Gerald. There's no competition. My Gerald is worth 100 Daves. And to lose a man like that because I wanted to try to be like everyone else? I didn't want to lose him. I reached for my phone and dialed Dave's number, putting it on speaker. He answered almost immediately, though he was trying to keep his voice down. Understandably, his wife was home. Sophie, I can't always talk at home. Listen, Dave, I'm calling to tell you to go to hell. If you come up to me at work again and try to talk to me, I'm going to report you to your bosses for sexual harassment. And then I'm going to tell your wife and personally help her take everything from you, your house, your money. And just so you understand, tomorrow I'm taking my husband to work with me. He really wants to see you. And now I saw my Gerald smiling happily. I think I've solved the lover problem. But this talk about cheating helped me again. Gerald and I had such a romp that we could only fall asleep in the morning. Good thing it was Saturday, but, I don't let Mary near my husband anymore. Just like he won't let me near any other man. He and I are too perfect to cheat. And then I'm gonna buy those sedative pills for my goddamn husband, so he won't run off to younger girls.